Hello, world. Welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Hello, world, and welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. We're broadcasting live from the Joy Virtual Studio right here in the beautiful Finger Lakes region of New York State. It is so great to be with all of you today. It is Thursday, April 16th, and spring has sprung in New York State. I hope the weather is well with all of you across the United States of America and beyond. The Shannon Joy Show is live today. We're live on Rumble, Twitter, Spreely, YouTube, Substack, Facebook, you name it. For those of you listening via your favorite podcast platform, great to have you with us today on the SJ Show. Make sure you give us a 5-star rating and also a review. That really helps with the algorithm on the podcast. Glad to have all of you watching in the live chats. Our most boisterous chatters, of course, are right here on Rumble. Mod Trend, I see you. Guitar Lily is with us today. Ollie Robin 9, great to see you. Buskman is with us. Bill Benz, good to see you as well. And on YouTube, Unvaxxed AF, I love your handle on YouTube. Great to see you. I only listen to and believe Shannon Joy. Thank you, Shannon. I appreciate you. Unvaxxed AF, and we have really great news today for those who have been vaccine injured. We had bombshells yesterday, massive bombshells today. A UK hearing report, an inquiry, the findings have been released, and the findings rule in favor of the vaccine injured. We have a major decision out of a German court that has been ruled in favor of the vaccine injured. And this one is a bombshell. So we're going to get to those in just a moment here on the Shannon Joy Show. The narrative on vaccines is changing. For the first time in almost 100 years, the massive pharmaceutical corporations and the medical industrial complex have lost the narrative on vaccines. We are breaking through. And it's one headline after another. This is going to change everything. And next week, we're going to welcome Sasha Latipova again into the Joy Virtual Studio to talk about just how dangerous every vaccine is, every injection is. She had an unbelievable presentation that she delivered here in Rochester, New York at the Summit for Truth and Wellness. It was about an hour and a half long, and the title of the presentation was How to Reliably Cause Cancer in Mice. And you will be blown away by this presentation. I called her the day before yesterday and said, Sasha, you have to come in on my show and we have to do this presentation for a broader audience because everyone needs to understand what she presented. It blew people's minds. And you might consider every injection forevermore after you hear this presentation. So we're going to do that with Sasha and also cover the news of the day on medical freedom next week here on the SJ Show. Today, as you see in the headline of the Shannon Joy Show, Aaron Day will be with us in just about, 20 minutes. We're going to bring him into the Joy Virtual Studio and talk about an absolutely outrageous statement from President Donald Trump. You see the headline today. Trump is now joining with Obama and Biden in demanding FISA renewal, and the vote in Congress could happen as early as today. This is outrageous. This will expand domestic surveillance on U.S. citizens and is the exact opposite, once again, of what Donald Trump campaigned on. Even worse, it's about identical to what Obama and Nancy Pelosi tried to achieve in Congress in 2013. And this is what Glenn Greenwald had to say about the effort. This is linked in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show, his entire report on this. Donald Trump is on the verge of doing what Obama and Pelosi did in 2013, despite running in 2024 by vowing to kill FISA. That was the quote. based on his claim that spying powers had been abused against him for political ends in the 2016 presidential campaign. We remember that, don't we? Trump, on Monday of this week, demanded that FISA be fully renewed, yet again with no reforms, no safeguards, or limits of any kind. He goes on to say Congress this week, perhaps as early as today, will vote on the renewal of Section 702 of FISA, and this grants the NSA the power to spy on certain communications of all American citizens without a warrant. So this is outrageous. We're going to talk to Aaron Day about this and also what is going on in the markets, crypto, private credit, private equity, but primarily crypto. Major reports out late last week on just blatant grift by the Trump crime family, Donald Trump and his sons and all of their cohorts in Washington, D.C., the billionaire class, the tech bros, you name it. They are pumping and dumping and grifting all the way down and using DeFi, which is decentralized finance. It's the wild, wild west of finance. And many Americans and potentially their IRA, 401k, or retirements could be caught in the crosshairs of what seems to be happening. They're breaking everything. Lots of chaos out there. And we're going to be joined by Aaron Day. I'm going to bring him in about 10 minutes to discuss this and more. Also, I mean, we have to spill the tea a little bit. Aaron Day knows all about the tech bros, including Elon Musk. And apparently Elon Musk's baby mama, Ashley St. Clair, is threatening to take down an entire cadre of pay-to-play, paid influencers on the payroll of Trump Inc. and MAGA Inc. And I mean, it's kind of a train wreck. I try to stay out of all of these things, but I just can't help myself. I need to hear from Aaron about what is going down with Ashley St. Clair. Benny Johnson is in her crosshairs, and it's crazy. She does these makeup videos. Like, she sits down, and again, Elon Musk has like 12 baby mamas. He has this mission. He's a very strange person and does a lot of ketamine, according to him. I think he says he's off of it now, but weird guy, very weird guy. Biggest welfare queen on the face of the planet, okay? But Elon Musk has this mission to procreate, and he has about 12, maybe 13 baby mamas. This girl, Ashley Sinclair, who was a paid influencer for the Trump team and the Trump campaign, has gone rogue apparently and is now threatening to spill the tea on all of them. And it's just an absolute train wreck. But, you know, we coined the term Bizarro Con here on the Shannon Joy Show about 2.5 years ago. And it was when we identified very clearly paid influencers who were not disclosing to their audiences that they were being paid by Donald Trump to push him over the hump during the presidential nomination campaign and then push him into office. And these were people like Benny Johnson and libs of TikTok and, you know, who was the other one? Cat Turd, Tim Pool, Laura Loomer. I mean, the list goes on and on. We haven't been able to figure out how many of them or, you know, actually pin these payments on them. But I think that that's going to come out eventually. And this is important because this is how they try to control narratives among particularly the conservative, evangelical, Christian right. And they pose as conservatives. They are not. So I'm a little interested in that. We're also going to ask Aaron about some of the other news of the day in the tech world, the surveillance state, the growth of the surveillance state, this NSA story. I'm sorry. Yeah, the FISA authorization and the NSA story will roll right into the creation of the techno-fascist police surveillance state. And Aaron Day is an expert on all of that. But before we get to Aaron, I do want to make sure that we are taking a victory lap in terms of the COVID-19 vaccine narrative. And this is absolutely huge. Bombshell court ruling out of German courts And Sasha Latipova says this is absolutely a bombshell. She tweeted this out. I retweeted her. This is from John Fleetwood's Substack. And here is the headline: in a major procedural victory for vaccine-injured plaintiffs, a German court now has ordered BioNTech to turn over internal data on its Comirnaty mRNA COVID-19 vaccine. This is affirming now, and this is for the first time in history, the first time ever, says Sasha Latipova. This is affirming that individuals claiming harm from vaccines have the right to access the manufacturer's own records to challenge its safety claims and pursue damages. This barrier has been what has kept back all of the hundreds, if not thousands, of federal and state court cases, even international court cases, seeking to establish damages and require that pharmaceutical corporations pay damages to individuals who are killed or harmed by their products. We have never been able to break through this. And for the very first time, the regional court in Orrick, in case 501106/24, has now issued a certified partial judgment ordering this pharmaceutical corporation to hand over the documents. Now, this directly addresses, and this is what John Fleetwood writes in his piece, a core imbalance that has defined vaccine injury litigation to date, and that is that injured individuals have been expected to prove causation while simultaneously being denied access to the very data that they need to do so. And this decision, for the very first time, breaks that barrier. This has wide-scale implication. Number one, if they're able to present these findings and get this information, it becomes public record. That could be usable for other types of litigation, not just in the US or in Germany, but across the globe. This also establishes precedent for other court cases, like the court case that we're pursuing with Sasha Latipova in the Netherlands, which also seeks to hold liable Bill Gates, Albert Bourla of Pfizer, and also Dutch officials in the damages caused by their rollout and their misinformation and disinformation that was provided to the Dutch people about the safety and efficacy of the COVID shots. This case can be used in other cases. And this disclosure is not minor. It is compelling now BioNTech to provide specific technical categories of internal data, including toxicity reports, pharmaceutical purity and variability key components. We'll finally figure out what's in the damn shots. We still don't know what's in the shots and what was actually injected into humans over the course of 2 years in the rollout of the COVID shots. It will require them to turn over manufacturing processes, suppliers, batch level differences, spike protein design, function, and biological behavior. They have to turn over whether or not spike protein remains membrane bound or becomes freely circulating in the body. They have to turn over biodistribution and potential exposure of organs and tissues, genotoxicity reports, pharmacovigilance data on recorded injuries matching the plaintiff's conditions, reproductive and fertility related effects, cancer-related mechanisms, internal evaluations, batch-specific quality control and contamination measurements, quantification of the spike protein production in the body. This is everything, everything. And these categories align with a broader disclosure request submitted by the plaintiff. This is commonly circulated as a 32-point data list. I cannot tell you how important this is. John Fleetwood writes at the end, this is not a final liability ruling, but this is a forced opening of the data, disclosure. So important. The immediate effect is that BioNTech must now provide internal data on how the vaccine was made, how it behaves in the body, what it's made of, and what adverse effects were known to the company at the time of rollout. Huge. And we'll be talking with Sasha Latipova about that next week on the SJ show. And we will be reporting on that in more detail. I'll also, I'd like to get Aaron Day's opinion on that as well. Another bombshell. Listen, the wheels are falling off of the vaccine jalopy here, guys. Daily Mail UK, another headline linked in the show notes. The COVID jab rollout has now been rolled, according to them, in the inquiry, the official inquiry in the UK, an extraordinary feat. But those harmed or killed by side effects were let down, and payout to victims should be doubled, according to this inquiry. Now, that's not enough. And in the inquiry, they also seek to rebuild public trust in vaccines, which will never happen. It will never happen because for the first time, a government body, and this was reported by the Daily Mail UK, not a right-leaning or vaccine-injured friendly publication, that indeed, for the first time, they are acknowledging that vaccines can kill and harm. Baroness Heather Hallett, chair of the UK COVID-19 inquiry, described the speed at which the vaccines were developed as an extraordinary feat, but she admitted that people have tragically died or been harmed by the jab. And the current vaccine damage payment scheme requires urgent reform as it is not sufficiently supportive. Another bombshell. We are winning. We are winning. None of this type of stuff happened 10 years ago, 8 years ago, 5 years ago, 3 years ago, 2 years ago. And it's not happening here in the United States of America, but we're being surrounded. The Netherlands, the UK, the German courts are beginning to realize the elephant is in the room and the fact that vaccines kill. This is unbelievable news, and we're going to continue to follow all of this on the Shannon Joy Show. Make sure that you scroll down in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show to get these reports, and we'll discuss more fully next week. Before we go to break and bring in Aaron Day, I do want to take care of just a little bit of housekeeping. Today is the day after tax day, and Peter Schiff, an amazing sponsor of the Shannon Joy Show, he is the founder CEO of Schiff Gold, the company of choice for me and also the Shannon Joy Show when it comes to anything in terms of hedging against the chaos using physical gold and silver. They can help you with a gold or silver backed IRA to protect your retirement. You can purchase physical gold and silver at shiftgold.com/joy. And you can begin to explore tokenized gold, T-Gold, which is available over at shiftgold.com/joy. You can get full reports on that URL about all of the ways that you can protect yourself against the economic chaos and the crypto madness that we're seeing unfold, not just in the United States of America, but across the globe. And you can do that today by going to shiftgold.com/joy. Now, Peter pushed out yesterday, and I loved this post. He said, today is April 15th, tax day. My father, Erwin Schiff, referred to tax day as the real April Fool's Day, not the first. As on this day, millions of Americans volunteer to pay tax that no law actually requires them to pay. For years, my father asked the IRS to show him the law, but they never did. And Peter Schiff's father challenged that law. And for his challenge, they arrested him in his late 70s, and he died in prison, shackled to a bed. He was one of the original warriors. And I think that's where Peter Schiff gets the fire in his belly to help as many Americans as possible understand the truth about the theft that our government commits against us every day in terms of inflation and money printing, but also the fallacy that is the IRS and tax law. There's an entire thread on Peter Schiff's handle. You can follow him on Twitter at Peter Schiff, where he goes into the tax code. We're beginning to see more and more stand up and speak out against the tax revolt. I am working with Marjorie Taylor Greene to bring her on the SJ show. She's been speaking out a lot about this. If we can find enough Americans to understand the law and do this legally and safely, I think it is time that we begin to plan and organize for a tax revolt. And I am very anxious to hear what MTG has to say about that. But in the meantime, this is why I partner with Peter Schiff, because he provides such an amazing service to the country. His father provided an amazing service. And I want to ask all of you, if you are in the market for gold and silver, if you are interested in protecting your wealth and hedging with gold and silver, whether it's T gold or physical gold, please go to shiftgold.com/joy so that Peter knows that I sent him. There's a ton of information on my URL and it helps me out. So shiftgold.com/joy. All right, let's go to a quick commercial break. When we come back, we're going to bring in to the Joy Virtual Studio, Aaron Day. Special guest, we're going to talk about the crypto madness, the crypto scams, the Trump crime family, the renewal of FISA, the NSA spying that Trump is pushing for right now, and the creation of the techno-fascist police state here in the US. As we talk about all of the headlines, they are very diligently building this throughout the US, but there are signs of pushback. And I want to talk to Aaron about the pushback on those data centers, all of the things. I cannot wait to talk with him. He is an expert on all of these things. So keep it tuned right here. We're going to bring Aaron in just a moment right here on the Shannon Joy Show. But I do want to talk about parasites. So as you know, there's been a big medical hack of 2025. Everyone's talking about parasites. In fact, my husband, devastatingly handsome Dr. Joy, was recently talking about parasites as well. It's one of those topics that just has not made its way into the mainstream conversation about why we get sick, right? You go to the doctor and it's either a virus or a bacteria or virus, but you never hear a doctor ever saying, well, maybe it's a parasite, right? So there's a lot of emerging research on this. And one of the best thing that's happened in 2025 was several peer-reviewed studies that identified direct connections between anti-parasitic medications having off-label benefits, fighting a variety of cancers. So this makes a lot of sense. The connection between tumor growth and parasites has been known for years. Now, while currently the CDC remains silent, they have admitted, finally, that millions of Americans are suffering from parasitic infections that often go undetected or undiagnosed. This is why Dr. Peter McCullough, Chief Scientific Officer over at the Wellness Company and the world's most published cardiologist, says, quote, these studies make a clear case to do at least one medical grade parasite cleanse every single year. And the TWC parasite cleanse is the real deal. This is not your mother's cleanse. This is not some supplement. This is an amazing product. It is the Wellness Company's proprietary USA compounded ivermectin plus mebendazole. It is a doctor prescribed gold standard combination dose, and it's designed to help the body eliminate parasites plus a lot of other incredible benefits. Each bottle contains 90 capsules, and it's enough to complete a 21-day cleanse. So the formula cannot be found at your local pharmacy. There's no equivalent out there. But the Wellness Company removes all of that red tape by making the process fully digital. So all you have to do is fill out a quick intake form. A doctor will review the form, and your medical grade parasite cleanse will arrive to you within a week. So this is a once a year cleanse. It is worth every penny, and it's time for people to get healthy and pay attention to the parasites. So head to twc.health/joy right now. twc.health/joy. That is my landing page. If you use the promo code JOY, that's JOY, they're going to take $60 off your parasite cleanse. Plus, they're going to give you free shipping. That is only at twc.health/joy. That is twc.health/joy. Annie has popped up the QR code in the corner of the screen. You can click on that or just hover your phone over it to go right to my site and enjoy a very special gift for the SJ audience. $60 off plus free shipping on every order when you use the JOY promo code. And by the way, use the JOY promo code every time you shop at TWC. If you're already plugged in, you're already using some of their products, make sure you use that JOY code so they know I sent you. 123.com/joy. Everything that you're going to need for preparation: generators, solar panels, Faraday products. If you want to disappear and protect yourself from the surveillance state, they have an entire line of amazing Faraday products called dark bags. They're always 10% off at the satellite phone store if you go to sat123.com/joy. That is sat123.com/joy. The satellite phone store has supported the Shannon Joy Show for many years. They are amazing partners, and let's help the companies that help keep the lights on here at the Shannon Joy Show. So if you are in the market for any of their products or services, make sure you use that promo code JOY and go to sat123.com/joy. That's sat123.com/joy. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. In just a moment, we will bring the Aaron Day into the Joy Virtual Studio to talk about the techno-fascist takeover of the world. They're doing it, and Trump is helping them. We're going to discuss that with Aaron. But first, I want to remind you, there will be a live show tomorrow. We're going to be starting here right around 12 p.m. Eastern Time. This is not going to be behind the paywall. It is going to be me, myself, and I self-producing. But I want to make sure that you guys mark your calendars because it's going to be a special presentation, campaign headquarters. As all of you know, yes, I am joining Larry Sharpe. He's running for governor of New York State. He asked me to come on as his running partner as lieutenant governor of New York State. We have a big mission over the next 5 weeks, and that is to secure 45,000 signatures, and we can do it. So tomorrow, as you know, I'm separating all the campaign stuff from the Shannon Joy Show. We're going to do a special campaign headquarters show tomorrow, and I will fill you guys in on everything that we can do to make this happen. I have a plan, and we're going to be rolling it out, and I cannot wait to tell you all about it. So mark your calendars. Tomorrow, 12 p.m.-ish Eastern Time, we'll be starting. I'll be broadcasting from my home, and I can't wait to talk to all of you about that. So in addition, one more thing. If you've noticed in the show notes of the Shannon Joy Show for the past week and a half, I have included a link to a Give, Send, Go. And this Give, Send, Go is for a very special couple that I met at the Summit for Truth and Wellness, Freddie and Delvis Montero. I have never met a woman fight so hard for her husband, who is battling cancer, stage 4. They came in and she just touched my heart. We have hooked them up with ivermectin protocols, and they are under the care of a physician's assistant, but I've been checking in on them. Some of these treatments are expensive, and I have been trying to raise money for Freddie and Delvis ever since. If you scroll down today and could just consider sending them a little bit to help them pay for some of these treatments. Again, none of this is covered by insurance because it's outside, it's not FDA approved. And, I just want to try and help to bless them. So Annie's going to pop up that Give, Send, Go in the show notes and in the chat, and I'll reference it maybe a couple times today. If we can just continue to bless them, I'm going to continue to bless them. And I know that you guys are so generous. It's only, we can only do so much in this world. There's so much suffering, but when you do have the opportunity to help someone, I want to try to do that. So yes, let's see if we can't bless Freddie and Delvis today. Now, without further ado, I'd like to bring into the Joy Virtual Studio. He's been waiting very patiently, and I've been running behind. Aaron Day, welcome to the Shannon Joy Show. Thank you so much for being with us today. You are one of the world's foremost experts on technocracy and the techno-fascist takeover of the world. You're also an expert on crypto and finance, and you've also been politically active yourself. You ran for president a couple years ago, so I am just absolutely thrilled to have you on. You're such a voice of reason. How are you doing today, the day after tax day here in the United States of America?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on, and congratulations on the run. And I will say, I don't know if you knew this or not, I am actually running for United States Senate as an independent in New Hampshire, which I'm happy to, which is related to actually what we're going to be talking about here today. But
unbelievable.
So fun stuff, but I'm using
Yeah.
it as leverage because it turns out the Senate looks like it's going to be taken over by the Democrats. And
Hmm.
in my state of New Hampshire, the Republican is down 1 point. So New Hampshire may very well determine which state or which party ends up controlling the U.S. Senate. And I've already done
Wow.
this before in 2016. I
Hmm.
cost a Senate seat, and so I'm at it again. So there we go.
There we go. Aaron Day, I love it. Listen, if there was 1 year for the blank no party, the independent, to break through this two-party political nightmare, it is the year 2026. I think this is going to be a trend. I think that in the foreseeable future, for the next decade, 2 decades, 3 decades, people are going to shed the two parties and go full scale independent. So, congratulations to you. How can people help you? Do you have a website yet set up, or is
Oh
there any
yeah,
type of mechanism?
I've got a full website at Day 2026. I'm not raising money yet.
Okay.
But it's actually a very comprehensive website about
Okay.
technocracy. About there's tons of information and content on there.
Okay.
And so I encourage people to check that out. And again, really going to be scaling this up. And my goal is that maybe I don't have to run if Trump actually follows through on some of the things he said he was going to follow through on. This is the real issue. The real issue is, and this is the only reason I end up running, is when the party, typically the Republican Party, goes so far against what they stated they were for and what they stated they were going to do that they need to be held accountable. And third
Hmm.
party races are a phenomenal way to do that, because usually you can't win within the system. Usually the
Hmm.
party apparatus is rigged, and so they know that. So a lot of times people spend a lot of money thinking, "Oh, I'm going to win in the primaries," and it ends up just being a detraction. So this should be a way to make some noise while also raising awareness about technocracy, which in my view is still the number one threat to human freedom. In fact, it's an even more urgent issue today than it was last time I was on.
Right, right. Well, let's get into it. Let's start with the money, the finance, the crypto, the schemes and the scams, the Trump family, Trump Inc., Donald Trump, his sons, his daughter, his son-in-law, his associates, the tech bros, everyone cashing in, pumping and dumping, insider trading, raking in billions upon billions of dollars. This blew up last week. It was all over social media as people began to scrutinize World Liberty Financial, all of the Trump schemes and how they're cheating. Let's start there, and then let's talk about what they have in store for us on the horizon as they seek to completely obliterate our economy and move all of us little people into a complete surveillance state with digital ID, digital currencies. You will own nothing and be happy. Like, basically command and control everything, plunging us all into poverty if they can get away with it. But let's begin with the grift. And it's frankly breathtaking to me how obvious they are in this grift and how blatant they are. Your thoughts on the recent news of the day there?
Well, I've been covering World Liberty Financial since the beginning, and I've been talking about certain aspects of it. I'm glad that it's now starting to be understood and known, but it's a bigger scam than people think, and it's not just ripping off investors. It actually has
Hmm.
a technocratic thread to it. But I want to start by saying one of the biggest misconceptions, and I hope people are learning, if there are MAGA supporters watching this, I've seen time and time again people say Trump didn't need to run. He was already wealthy. He could be playing golf. Look, he donated his salary to the veterans. You need to understand something. He has almost tripled his net worth in the second term. He has added $4 billion to his net worth since being in office and elected the second time.
Unbelievable.
So when you're sitting there looking at, oh, he donated his salary, the way you make money is not, through a W-2 or a 1040. It's actually through investment schemes. And so the first thing that he did 3 days before the inauguration is they launched two meme coins, one called Trump and the other called Melania. And a meme coin is essentially, it is a pump and dump scheme. It's a Ponzi scheme. These are tokens that have no actual value or utility. You're not investing in a company. You don't have ownership in anything. The reason people buy meme coins is because they think they're going to go up and they're going to be able to sell before, somebody ultimately gets left holding the bag. Well, on those two tokens, the public has lost $4.3 billion. So this was his opening salvo. This is what he did
Wow.
on day one in the when he got into office. But then we get into World Liberty Financial, and there are some aspects to this that are absolutely fascinating to understand. And
Okay.
it's something that I've been advocating for crypto prisoners of war for since 2023. And in fact, my podcast has recently just become having on victims or their family members or their lawyers.
Wow.
There are that many. And I didn't start out, I started out trying to warn people about technocracy, but more recently it's been trying to raise awareness about people who've been thrown into prison for promoting the use of cryptocurrency as an alternative to central bank currencies, as a way to promote economic freedom around the world, as a way to oppose war. Because if you're using fiat currency, you're supporting war. It's a debt-based system. And when the number one thing that you're spending the debt on is the military, then by definition, if you are using fiat currency, you are supporting the war state.
Right. Can I pause you for a moment? Because I think that's a really important element for the audience to understand in the discussion of crypto or tokenization or digital currencies. What I'm hearing from you is that there are efforts. I mean, there is inevitably going to be some type of movement into these types of digital currencies. And in reality, we kind of have digital currencies already. And there are people who are trying, and companies and businesses are trying to create these different versions of crypto or digital currencies that would compete with each other in a free market, that would, operate in a free market with due diligence and create a value to people who use them. And so there's this one side that is something that we should encourage and want, because that's competition. And if there is going to be a digital currency, we want lots of them out there. And we don't want one single fiat currency, which is the currency that is dominated by a governmental system, whether it's a national governmental system or an international global governmental system. And so when we talk about the international global governmental fiat system, Trump is embroiled in that, and they are actively trying to create that as fast as they possibly can. At the same time, they're trying to put in prison and destroy anyone else out there who is in this space trying to give people an alternative to the fiat currency. Am I explaining that correctly? But that's what I'm hearing from you as a very important line of delineation.
That is essentially the gist of it. I mean, I
Okay.
don't get into a lot of details, but a lot of the cryptos out there aren't even controlled by companies. They're actually open source protocols.
Okay.
You can actually see the code. Nobody centrally controls them. This was one of the beautiful inventions, at least we thought about Bitcoin early on, is that you don't have a central issuer that's a government
Right.
that has a kill switch or that can program how that money works. And so, as you know, one of the things that I've been advocating against the most for the past 3 or 4 years is CBDCs.
Right.
And so, in fact, I ran for president on that issue. And then Trump came out and said, no CBDCs. But what we have is something worse. So there are two pieces of legislation. One has passed and the other's about to pass. And the one that's about to pass is actually even more dangerous. But the first was the Genius Act. And what the Genius Act does is it says, hey, listen, we're not going to have a digital token issued by the central bank. But what we're going to do is we're going to take private stable coins, which are tied to the dollar, pegged to the dollar, and issued by private organizations, and put those under the control of Congress so that they can be tracked, programmed, and censored. So what people are worried about with CBDCs, it's not the fact that it's the Federal Reserve issuing the token. They just want their money to be programmed, tracked, and censored. What has happened with the Genius Act is they've taken something that's really popular. Let me be clear. Stablecoins, people used stablecoins to do $33 trillion worth of transactions last year. It's greater than Visa already. And by 2030, it will be greater than Visa, MasterCard, and even direct deposit. So people like using these stable coins. But then they put this regulatory regime in that you have to comply with a whole bunch of stuff. So it's only going to be a limited number of people that are going to be able to issue these stable coins. And it turns out people tied directly to the administration or in the administration are the biggest direct beneficiaries.
Wow. Like, can you name a couple of them?
Yes, the first and largest is Howard Lutnick, our Secretary of Commerce. One of it used to be the largest stablecoin in the world. It's now the second largest. It's called Tether.
Hmm.
And Howard Lutnick cut a deal prior to getting involved in politics for his firm, Cantor Fitzgerald, to manage all of the U.S. Treasuries backing Tether as a stable. So
Wow.
every time you're using Tether, his firm is making money because they're managing all of the treasuries that back that stable coin. So his firm invests $600 million to get the contract to manage these treasuries. Then he gets involved in politics. And I want to be clear about this. Howard Lutnick is not a well-known Republican, stalwart. Howard Lutnick was a major donor to Hillary Clinton's 2016 presidential campaign.
Of course he was.
So he came out of nowhere. He's also Epstein's next door neighbor. There's a whole other thread, but we don't have.
Of course he is. Okay. Yeah. Right.
We don't have time to go on all that, but he ends up becoming the chair of Trump's transition team, which is the powerful position of vetting all of the cabinet members, and actually tried to put himself up to be Treasury Secretary. Now, I just want you to take a step and understand the conflict.
Right.
His company gets a contract to manage the treasuries backing the largest stablecoin, and then he tries to become the Treasury Secretary.
Unbelievable.
That doesn't happen, but nevertheless, that doesn't stop him. He still was one of the major people engineering and pushing the Genius Act. And what the Genius Act did was it said, in order for your stablecoin to be legal and legitimate, one, you're going to have to be under the control of Congress from the standpoint of reporting and regulation and all the bank secrecy laws and all the other invasive things that destroy our privacy. But on top of that, you now have to back your stable coin by only U.S. treasuries. So, I mean, you mentioned what Peter Schiff is doing with a gold token. If he tried to make his gold token, a stable coin by saying, hey, it's backed by gold, but one of these coins equals $1. He couldn't do that because being forced to back it by treasuries. Why did the government do this? The government did this because we now have whatever it is. I can't even keep track. $38 trillion worth of debt. Mm-hmm. No one wants to buy our treasuries anymore. China doesn't want to. Japan can't. And so they realized that by passing this law, they can sell $3 trillion worth of treasuries to back these stable coins. So in the end, what we get as the public is we get a digital programmable version of the dollar that is controlled by government, where the people that profit off of it the most are Howard Lutnick and now the Trump family, because they weren't going to be left out of the grift. They have their own stable coin called USD1, which is part of World Liberty Financial. And this stablecoin, so the biggest scam of all, when we talk about coins in World Liberty Financial, isn't just that people lost a lot of money or got ripped off in a meme coin.
Right.
They're trying to use this USD1 stablecoin as the currency for the technocratic reconstruction of Gaza. And Pakistan, as I understand, has bought $5 billion of it. So now what you have is USD1, which is a regulated, can be tracked, programmed, and censored, and which we now learn in the last 48, 72 hours has a back door.
Yes.
They are trying to push that as a stable coin around the world, and they're using our military to go in and level places like Gaza, where they've destroyed 90% of the buildings, killed over 70,000 people. And what they're trying to build on top of it is literally a technocracy. They call it the technocratic reconstruction of Gaza. It will have 6 AI-powered smart cities.
What?
It will have involved in it Oracle and Palantir, and they are trying to push USD1 as being essentially the backdoor CBDC for the technocratic reconstruction of Gaza. Jared Kushner is involved in the project. They put out, this is not a theory. They put out a 32-page PowerPoint presentation.
Unbelievable.
On this. And all of the people that are pushing this Gaza reconstruction, 3 of the 8 board members of the Board of Peace are involved in this. So this is the bigger story that no one's talking about yet, which is that the Trump family is directly involved in pushing technocratic reconstruction, and where they're benefiting off of our military intervention and support of other countries' military intervention in the Middle East. And by the way, when they talk about Cuba next, You will not. I will bet right now that they will be in there trying to push USD1
Unbelievable.
as the currency for the reconstruction project in Cuba.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. So what I'm hearing from you is they have set up a mechanism to operate as technates or technocratic kings, right? They have a board of peace, which is the governing body, which Trump appoints, and he's appointed as the head of that for life. They have a currency, which they're trying to push as USD1, and they use taxpayer dollars to do this and to push a lot of these things. And they also have contracted with corporations like Palantir, but other military entities to provide and create standing armies. I've read somewhere around the range of 50 to 60,000 that would operate as the military, right? And so the Trump family is literally collapsing the US economy, collapsing the dollar, injecting chaos, cratering, just absolutely demolishing this country. And it looks like their exit plan is to exit the country and take over Gaza and Cuba and Greenland without any type of governmental system, any type of democratic oversight, any type of rights or privileges for citizens, and really create the prototype for what they would like to expand to the entire globe, which is the global technocratic state. Am I overstating that?
That is what the plan is. The plan, and again, technocracy is a political ideology. So there are a lot of people that mix up the word. They think that it means technology. It doesn't. It's a political ideology that doesn't have individual rights or property rights as part of it. The whole idea behind it is you need to have experts, scientists, and engineers, and now that's been replaced by AI making decisions for us. So you have a digital programmable currency that is centrally controlled and ultimately, by the way, will be backed by energy. So it'll end up being an energy credit based system.
And that's what Elon's pushing.
And that's what Elon is pushing, and openly and publicly. And again, technocracy is an ideology that started in the 1930s. They have documents. There's a whole playbook for this. There's something called Technocracy Inc. This is an ideology that has been 90 years in the making. And just now do we have the technology to do it. So one of the biggest rug pulls that's happened in all of this is when you go back before the election, people were looking at, for instance, the WEF and saying, well, the WEF, these are the bad guys. And you'd see these sketch drawings of what a 15-minute city would look like. And so Trump's like, well, yeah, we don't, we're going to be, anti-globalist. But what they've replaced these things with is something worse. It's kind of like the sales job that Doge is about cutting costs. And remember, people were saying, oh, they're going to cut $2 trillion and they're going to eliminate the national debt. The point of Doge was to implement technocracy, and Doge was successful at doing that. Doge connected Palantir to all of the federal government databases, and now we're at a point where they're going to be using Palantir AI, since we're a day after tax day, to do audits for tax purposes. That is what they put in place. So the whole idea that people had is that they're going to cut government, but what people were believing was going to happen after you cut government is that you would have limited government and that you would restore the Constitution. In reality, it was a Trojan horse to put in place AI and technocracy, which I warned about, but now we're actually seeing it. It's no longer a speculative enterprise. They're doing it, and they're doing it at scale. And so the world, people will talk about, well, we're moving to a multipolar world. Yes, it'll be a multipolar world, but it's not China versus BRICS. It's not about nations or national sovereignty. It's a corporate multipolar world. It's Oracle versus Palantir versus OpenAI versus Microsoft. And it's exactly where it's heading at this point.
Well, and this is incredibly dangerous because the normal pushback would come from conservative constitutionalists, Republicans, people who seemingly prefer smaller government, free markets, low taxes, low government involvement. But this is being pitched. When I hear conservatives, so-called conservatives, support this, right? They support it because Trump has branded it, and they worship at the altar of Donald Trump and MAGA. But they will say, oh, this is a free market. They're smashing government. They're getting rid of government, and they're ushering in the free market. Elon Musk is brilliant. Elon Musk runs a billion-dollar company and is the smartest guy in the world and rolls out all this great technology. And we'd rather have businessmen running things and the free market running things than the government. That's a total fallacy in my opinion. But what are your thoughts on that? Because I hear that every single day.
Yeah, it is a complete fallacy. Well, I want to say I put together a website called technocracyatlas.com. And what I have on there are two really interesting things. There's a state map and a global map. And what I've done is I've shown the growth of technocracy by country and by state since 1973. And you can actually download a report for your state or for your country to see what's going on. It analyzes everything from data centers to what's going on with surveillance cameras and everything else. But the important part to note here is that what these technocrats are doing is not free market capitalism, it's cronyism. What they're doing is they're at the federal level lobbying for laws that block out all competition and make it so that essentially they're the only players that can participate. And then they're using state level tax incentives, like in the instance of AI data centers, to use taxpayer money to push what they're doing. There is nothing about that is free market. And when you mentioned this, I mean, I've come from kind of a libertarian angle on this, and I'm seeing libertarians that are actively promoting Palantir. Now, I will tell you, as a libertarian, if your view is end the Fed and taxation is theft, how can you be supporting the use of AI for auditing people and for auditing people's taxes and call yourself pro-liberty or pro-libertarian? But I can tell you, I've figured out how all this works. Now, in the end, you have basically the right versus the left right now is Peter Thiel versus George Soros. And in the end, you get technocracy either way, but they have very specific talking points. The talking points on the right now are abandon your principles, don't fight for your principles. The only thing that matters is to defeat the left. And they're pushing language like it doesn't matter unless you win. And so their entire argument is about building up polarity and trying to get people to pick a side while abandoning principles. But in the end, what they're doing is they're just puppets now for Peter Thiel. And this is becoming more problematic than I thought. I mean, I've spent the last 4 years going around the world trying to educate people about technocracy, only to come to find out that in New Hampshire, people that I thought were libertarians are actually promoting it. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. Well, the political class is completely bought into the technocracy because they're making it rain. Like they're dumping money on Republican candidates, Democrat candidates. You accurately represented Peter Thiel versus George Soros. So we are dealing, for the most part, with, I believe, puppets in position of power, Donald Trump and Joe Biden included, and these, large factions are kind of behind the scenes funding everything. And so, they're also making it rain in terms of influencers, social media, right-wing news media, left-wing news media. The level and sophistication of the big tech AI, the robots, the data centers, propaganda is some of the most sophisticated that I've seen in quite some time. They're using bot and troll armies. They're creating messaging for these people in positions of power. New Hampshire needs you as a senator, by the way, Aaron. New Hampshire desperately needs for you to win a Senate seat in this election. By the way, Aaron is running for Senate in the state of New Hampshire, because I don't know another person that has a better handle on what is actually happening here in the country on the technology, what's happening within our economy. I really appreciate all of the work that you have done here. What do you think they need to do? We're going to go to break in a minute and then we'll come back and finish off. What do you think needs to happen here in the US? At this point, we're kind of in a holding pattern. Everyone senses that the economy is about to collapse. I mean, just the difference between the paper price of oil versus what they're saying the price of oil is, or what the price of oil actually is. And we're seeing this within a lot of markets. The profligate spending, the inflation, as far as I can see, everyone senses that, things are going to break down a little bit. But I'm trying to understand, what practically does that look like in the country? What should people expect? Because the goal here is to stop them. It's why you're running for Senate. It's why I'm running for lieutenant governor. It's why we're organizing. It's why I come and do the show every day. It's why you provide so much information on your show every day. By the way, before we go to break, I want you to tell people where they can access all of your social media and all of your information. But, what does that look like practically to you before we go to break? And then we can continue the discussion when we come back.
The most important thing is to stop technocracy, but you have to understand that technocracy, the reason I did the Technocracy Atlas site, is happening at all levels of government. It's
Yes.
happening at local, state, federal, and it's actually happening through these international bodies. So we need to throw wrenches in the works, and we have to be very sophisticated about the way that we do that. And I have some ideas behind that, but this is why I built this site, just to raise awareness on what the issue is. But beyond that, that only stops what's 90 years in the works. I think the most important thing for people to do is to start going within and examining, what are you doing your true purpose? Is what you're doing in life what you're meant to be doing? And if not, allocate your time and resources and invest in that. Because a lot of people are talking about, where do I invest? Invest in yourself, and invest in figuring out what you are really passionate about doing with your life. Because there are going to be a lot of things changing in the economy, but the one thing that you can change is yourself, your own thoughts, your own actions, your own emotions. And most people are living lives of quiet desperation, where they're doing something for their career and so forth that they don't like, which, by the way, might also be replaced by AI. So I think the most productive thing you can do is invest in yourself and determine and figure out what it is that you really want to be doing.
Aaron, I think that's great advice. And that's going to set us up for the second half of our interview, the what to do segment, right? Because I sense that there are huge opportunities for truth and justice and liberty, and people kind of breaking out of so many of these institutional bureaucracies, these institutional factions. I even see a silver lining in the robotization of everything. Now, I think that they're not nearly as far along as they would like us to think that we are. But, I think that there is a way that humans can embrace humanity and what it is to be human, and actually live outside of all of their dystopian plans for all of us. And I see that in the unbelievable pushback that we're beginning to see here in the United States of America. One town board meeting after another, after another. They are driving out the technocrats. They are driving out local politicians who are rubber stamping plans for massive data centers. There was a huge piece by Zero Hedge saying that there's panic within the tech companies because at least half of all of the data centers that were planned to be rolled out in the United States of America over the next 10 years are either going to be canceled or put on hold, mainly because the American people are saying, you know what, we like technology, but we don't like what you're doing. We don't like techno-fascism. We don't like technocracy. We don't like AI governance. We don't like mass surveillance, and we're going to push back. We're even beginning to see American citizens ripping down flock cameras in certain jurisdictions where they install them. So I'm dying to hear how you feel about some of the pushback that we're seeing. And I would love to hear your thoughts on how we can amplify that. And then what we can do from our own corner of the world, according to our own unique talents and abilities, to fight back against this. Because this is going to be the battle of our lifetime. This is the World War III. It is regular people against global techno-fascist oligarchs. And they want everything. So we're going to talk about that when we come back with Aaron Day. Keep it tuned right here. And also put in the live chat. I see you guys on YouTube. I see you on Substack. I see you on Twitter. And of course, the Rumble live chat. Now is your time to pop in comments or questions for Aaron. When we come back, we're going to continue with this discussion right here on the Shannon Joy Show. Please head over to theshannonjoy.com, theshannonjoy.com. This is my independent platform. It is my website. I own it. And the email list that I have created with all of you, those of you who have signed up for the Shannon Joy daily email, it is so important. It's the most critical element in terms of my connection to all of you. Should I be deplatformed on YouTube or Twitter or Rumble or any of the platforms that we are pushed out on today, it is my one line to all of you. It's where I can contact you directly and let you know where to find the show. I will never forget the censorship of 2020. I was permanently suspended on Twitter. I was completely shadow banned on Facebook. I lost the entirety of both audiences in the span of 30 days. In the early days of the Shannon Joy Show, I was completely yanked off of a radio station because I continued to critique Donald Trump, and it was a right-wing radio station. Overnight, I lost my entire platform. Thank God 10 years ago, or was 8 years ago, I had built up a presence on Twitter and Facebook and was able to continue the show until I moved it to another platform, a 50,000 watt radio station just down the road. But I am very familiar with being deplatformed and it happening very fast. That email list is everything. It is my pipeline to all of you. So if you haven't signed up for the SJ email list, please do so today. Go to theshannonjoy.com. That is theshannonjoy.com, and make sure that we're connected. I am so proud to be working with Peter Schiff and Schiff Gold in 2026. There is no one that I would trust more to send this audience to in terms of a metals strategy. Whether it's your gold and silver physically that you purchase and keep in your home or in a safety deposit box, gold and silver in an IRA, which you can do through Schiff Gold, or even investing in gold mining stocks, which Peter Schiff and his team can also help you with. It is time to get that metals strategy in place. Right now, silver and gold are soaring. Silver is approaching $85 an ounce, while gold is up over $45 an ounce. And people don't see this stopping anytime soon. I know it seems expensive to you, but I don't know that there is a cap to this in the near future. So you can get started now. I want to encourage you guys right now to go to schiffgold.com/joy. That is schiffgold.com/joy. Everything that you need, Peter's analysis, market reports, research reports. You can get plugged into his investment services, physical gold and silver, which we're going to be talking about this month, and also protecting your retirement with a gold or silver IRA. It's all right there at your fingertips on my page, schiffgold.com/joy. Welcome back, everyone, to the Shannon Joy Show. Before we get back to our very special guest, Aaron Day, I want to talk to you guys about a product, one of the best products that I have found, I would say, in the past 5 years. As you guys know, I am approaching the big 5-0, which is not fun in and of itself. And, you know, going through the change is also not fun. In addition to going through the change, what I'm seeing is a change in my face, in my skin. And I've been battling rosacea and redness and these little bumps. It's not necessarily acne. It's just this uneven texture and tone. And of course, the redness and rosacea. It's been driving me crazy. I've had to cake on the makeup, which I never like to do except for when I'm on air. And it's just been a real issue. Well, a couple weeks ago, I got started on ivermectin cream from our sponsors at the Wellness Company. And I know that I'm not alone. 25% of adults struggle with acne, and more than 14 million Americans battle rosacea. 1 in 10 people suffer from chronic dermatitis or even eczema. So these are not just cosmetic issues. They itch, they burn, they crush confidence, and the store-bought treatments just don't work. A lot of them have harsh chemicals that also have severe side effects. So Clear Skin Ivermectin Cream works so well. It worked immediately, first and foremost, when I first started using it on day one. It has worked so well over the past few weeks that I've now purchased another bottle for my son, Jack, who also deals with acne and rosacea, and I'm sending it to him. But this is a dermatologist tested and designed prescription formula that targets the root cause of rosacea and blemishes safely and gently under the skin. So it has all kinds of great ingredients that I won't be able to pronounce, so I'm not going to read them. But of course, the main one, ivermectin and menbendazole, which helps control bacterial overgrowth and calm irritation. Ivermectin, as you know, reduces inflammation. So this is a killer product. It is one of my absolute favorites. I will be using it forevermore, and I highly recommend it to any of you who are struggling with skin issues. So right now, you can get Clear Skin ivermectin at discount by going to twc.health/joy. That is twc.health/joy to get your Clear Skin ivermectin cream. And for the Joy audience, if you use that promo code JOY, you're going to get $20 off plus free shipping. That's just for the Joy audience. So $20 off plus free shipping. This product is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And I so highly recommend it. It's changed my life. Okay. Back to the SJ show. And of course, our special guest, Aaron Day. Before we get into all of the solutions and how to fight back and how to throw wrenches and resist the techno-fascist expansion in the US, Aaron, please tell everyone how they can access all of your information. You do an enormous amount of research. You've written the book literally on a lot of these things. You have run for president. You are now running for Senate in the great state of New Hampshire. And really, you are an example of what everyone should be doing in terms of practicing civics. And I applaud you for that. I really hope that people will support you in all of your efforts. So before we get into the second half of this interview, how can people support you? How can people find you and get access to the very important work that you're doing?
Sure. So the best way to find me, I have a website. My wife and I have a foundation, daylightfreedom.org, and that actually links to our other 6 websites. So we have 6 websites that address different aspects of this. We talked about Technocracy Atlas, but we have something called Own Nothing. Which allows you to basically answer some quick surveys, and it shows you. One of the arguments I've been making is we already 90% own nothing, and we've already given it away through contractual agreements, click wrap agreements, and other things. And so the idea is for you to be able to answer some questions about your situation, and then it'll give you a score, and then it'll give you a list of recommendations for how you can improve your sovereignty in a whole variety of different aspects: health, food.
Wow.
Financial, et cetera. So there are 6 different tools like that. They're all free. And then my campaign site is day2026.com, which is not linked from the Daylight Freedom thing. I try to separate these things.
Good.
And then my social media is the best place to reach me is on X at Aaron R. Day.
Okay. Yes. And Aaron does a lot of posting of great information on Twitter as well and X. So let's do this. I want to take a couple comments here on YouTube. Deepwater One, I see you on YouTube. Madge Goku says howdy, great to see you. We have Jesse Yoza. The hypocrisy of grifting and criticism of grifting, selling snake oil is no different. Absolutely true. Here's a question from Madjoku on YouTube. Yes. What about stable coins? I'm trying to learn how shifting to that will eliminate our debt. So some are saying, and you kind of outlined that in the last segment, but the stable coins, they're the scheme to basically shift, you said $3 trillion onto like a new ledger. So basically they're going to erase the United States debt by shifting us into something else. Watch that, right? Can you explain in more detail?
No, they're not eliminating our debt. What they're doing is they're adding CBDC level surveillance to digital money, but it's still backed by debt. So these stable coins are backed by U.S. Treasuries, and the U.S. Treasuries are debt. And so there are a lot of there's a lot of propaganda that's been used. I've actually, on my campaign side, I actually analyzed the Genius Act and the Clarity Act, and I show who the lobbyists are behind it, who the money is behind the bills, who the former regulators are that are now working on sponsoring the bill. So there's been a whole bunch of misinformation that's put out there about stable coins being the solution to some problem. In the end, they're still backed by debt, but what we've now done is we've added programmability, trackability, and censorship to digital money.
It's worse.
And so it's worse than if you actually tried to launch a CBDC, you'd have resistance. The problem is they've managed to take the hype of something that's private and popular and put fancy language around it. I mean, this was, by the way, you want to talk about devious. The bills for the stablecoin bill, you had the Genius bill in the Senate and the stable bill in the House. Well, why was it called that? Because Trump called himself a stable genius.
Unbelievable.
So this is next level propaganda, but I've analyzed all the bills. And if you don't believe me, read the bills yourself. But I've given the full breakdown of these bills. It is a backdoor CBDC at,
Wow.
I called it warp speed, but it really,
Yeah.
this gives us, and so now other countries are either accelerating their CBDCs or emulating this stablecoin approach. So in the end, what it gives is government control over your money, but it doesn't solve debt one bit.
Hmm. What do you make of Donald Trump like losing his mind recently? Are you buying it or do you think it's a shtick?
I don't know. The problem that I have with this whole situation is that, I mean, I've never voted for Trump in any election or primary, but
Same.
I studied him a lot. I met him when I was 19.
Wow.
And I've actually kind of watched his progress. People don't realize that if he had put his money and his inheritance in the S&P 500, he'd have more money than he has now. The whole idea of him as a successful businessman is actually fake, but there's a whole generation of people that watched The Apprentice,
Right.
believe that The Apprentice is real. So this guy gets into office and people are like, oh, well, he has this TV show where he's firing people. He must be a good manager. There's a documentary about that show. The producers of The Apprentice were like, yeah, we thought this was hysterical and a joke at the time because Trump, when they launched the show, this was right after Trump's bankruptcy. So he's out there doing Pizza Hut commercials and they're like, oh, yeah, sure, let's bring him on. And now there's a generation of people that are worshiping his prowess as a businessman. To me, when you look at the background that he has in commercial real estate in New York, this is not exactly a free market enterprise.
Mm-hmm.
And his mentor was Ray Cohn, who was the lawyer for the 5 mafia families in New York, and
Wow.
was involved in sexual blackmail and a whole variety of other things. And so the thing that I've always when I've argued with people that have bought into a shtick, I said there's no aspect of Trump that has ever been pro free market. He wouldn't know free market if it hit him in the head. He actually comes from, so he believes that this is the way it works. So if you actually look at what he does through the lens of being a mafia boss instead of being some patriotic representation of the values of America or the Constitution, the world starts to make more sense.
Right.
Is he losing his mind? He's not losing his mind if you consider that what he's doing is using the U.S. military to go in and invade places to then put in place a technocracy that his family and administration and people close to him personally profit from.
Right.
So again, test the thesis and then look and see what's actually going on. Do you think maybe we're going to have Trump casinos in Cuba? Do you think maybe they would use USD1 as the currency in Cuba? I mean, this is, and again, this isn't America first. America doesn't benefit from this one bit. These are corporations going in and doing these reconstruction projects, and they are multinational technocratic corporations.
Right.
So
Right.
there's a lot to unpack there, and I'm going to do my best to try to simplify the messaging on this. But boy, if you ever wanted to understand what technocracy was, you can see it now concretely
In Gaza.
in Gaza.
And in the rebuilding and in the future in Cuba. How much power do you think Trump actually has? I have posited that he is an actor, a political actor, just like on The Apprentice, a good amount of WWE fake wrestling and K-Fab involved with Trump. But, there's speculation. When you look at what he's doing and the level of sophistication of what he and his family are trying to accomplish in Gaza and in places like Cuba and potentially internationally as they're trying to make USD1 the global reserve cryptocurrency or stable coin or token or whatever it is. Do you think he's the man and has all the power, or do you think that there are strings attached and he's being puppeteered?
There's nothing chess or strategic about Trump. He doesn't understand or know any of this. Even his own stablecoin, by the way, USD1, was built by CZ from Binance.
Right.
And CZ was pardoned by Trump. And then after pardoning Trump, raised $2 billion from Abu Dhabi for World Liberty Financial.
Yep.
CZ is the one who actually technically built USD1, and he owns 80% of the supply. Trump's entire model, if you look at the companies that he's involved in, is he doesn't run any of them. He gets a cut for licensing his brand.
Oh my word, you're right.
So there's nothing about he probably doesn't even understand what's going on. But in this case, if someone is playing 5D chess, it's Peter Thiel. Peter Thiel is actually smart and does know what he's doing, and he's been playing a multi-decade game where he's been recruiting politicians, he's been pushing all of the pieces on the chessboard, and then Trump just happened to be the one. Now, I'm more worried about JD Vance, and not because I'm worried about JD Vance, but because JD Vance is a puppet directly controlled by Thiel. So I think he's just there. Trump is very easy to, massage his ego. If you give him enough money and you massage his ego, he's going to do whatever.
Say whatever you want.
But that's not strategic, right? That's not 5D chess. That's just, being compromised and not having a set of principles.
So who do you think is making the decisions to invade Iran, to put boots on the ground, to aid and abet Israel in taking out Gaza? Like, who's the guy?
I don't know if it's one guy, and there's a set of circumstances. It's kind of like technocracy it's a group of people that they shift who they are.
Right.
They may be aligned on what the end goal is, but they're going to fight each other over who controls it in the end, which is why actually sowing division amongst technocrats is the best best way out. They're not going to be successful. The question is, are they going to wipe out humanity in the process of doing? That's to me those stakes here. But in this particular case, I've noticed something else, which is if you look at what's going on, I think largely you have a situation where both Trump and Netanyahu were hell-bent on staying out of jail. And a lot of the wars and a lot of the misdirection is caused by their desire to do anything to stay out of prison. If you think about it, somebody asked me about, because a lot of people were fooled by Trump this last time around. And like, well, we thought that he was really aligned with Maha. We thought he was really aligned with this. People forget the fact that Trump was facing 100 years in prison. If he didn't win that election, he would be in prison right now. He had cases in New York. He had a case in D.C. He had a case in Georgia. It wasn't going well for him. So is he willing to say to the libertarians, yes, I'll pardon Ross Ulbricht? Is he willing to say to Maha, he had to get RFK Jr. out of that race? So, for instance, what I'm doing in New Hampshire as an independent, I've already proven that there's no amount of money. The amount they lost in 2016, it was the most money ever spent per capita in a U.S. Senate race.
Wow.
And there's nothing that they can do to stop a third party, because you can't even attack me. If you attack me, then you're actually just going to elevate me even more. It's going to backfire. So they're like sitting there like, we can't even do anything about this. RFK being on the ballot was a guaranteed loss for Trump. So, of course, Trump had to get Bobby Kennedy out of the race. And so, he played this, oh, yeah, I believe in the things that you believe in, and he did a good sales job. And, how happy are you with Maha? I mean,
not at all.
I've said for a while.
I raged against that decision by Bobby Kennedy Jr. and lost most of my medical freedom friends in the process because of that. Because I absolutely raged against it. This is the worst thing that you could do, is to put this vicious predator in office again. The guy who did it to us in the first place, help him get there. And then let him annihilate your reputation, your organization, your power. That's exactly what happened. We were right from the very beginning about this, Aaron. What do you think about Peter Thiel and JD Vance? JD Vance recently headlined a TPUSA event at a major college university. Erica Kirk was supposed to join him. Ticket sales were so low and so disastrous that she canceled. And then JD Vance proceeded to get heckled by the audience. They called him a baby killer as he tried to give a Catholic Christian defense of dropping bombs on babies' heads in Gaza and Iran. He was not well received and sparked now a never JD Vance or never Vance movement. Many speculate that Vance was the next in line. This was Peter Thiel's hand-picked puppet to exit or to enter stage left as Trump exited stage right. And that Vance is being promoted by people like Elon Musk, Tucker Carlson, the so-called America First right that has risen up now against Trump. Do you think that this is a lot of razzle dazzle and just, destroying Trump to get everyone ready for the entrance of JD Vance? And then second question, do you think Americans are going to buy it? Because people don't like JD Vance. From my perspective, the market is like, oh, hell no. Your thoughts?
I think the plan was always about installing JD Vance. And if you actually look at a lot of the hype, and a lot of people were excited with Trump coming in saying, hey, this time it's going to be different. Why? Because
Hmm.
they've been strategic about it. So they're going to come in and what were they going to do? They were going to crush bureaucracy. They were going to bring in Doge. They were going to do all these other things. This is
Right.
all out of Curtis Yarvin's handbook. And Curtis Yarvin is the guy who actually influenced Peter Thiel. This is right out of their playbook, and I'm seeing it now with libertarians who are basically NPCs that are saying the same words. It's, oh, we have to do anything to own the libs. We have to be completely reactionary to the other side. But in the end, it was all about consolidation of power in the executive branch, not for the benefit of Trump, but for the benefit of JD Vance.
Wow. Good.
One of the things that they pushed was a sovereign wealth fund. I believe Trump signed an executive order pushing for a sovereign wealth fund, which is something that typically only dictators or monarchs have. This was an idea of being able to consolidate. This is an anti-American concept. The idea
Hmm.
that the country, which we now own almost 10% of Intel, you would have to get congressional approval to do a sovereign wealth fund, but they've been using backdoor ways to do the same thing. So we own the country now owns part of Lithium Americas, and this is going on all over the place where they're trying to find backdoor ways to do this. Just like with the Board of Peace, by the way, with the
Mm.
Board of Peace, you have to be a part of it. You have to donate $1 billion. Trump, the U.S. is going to
Crazy.
put in 10 billion, but to
Yeah.
get that 10 billion, he'd have to get congressional approval. So he didn't do that. Instead, what he did was he directed the State Department to put in $1.5 billion. Well, by the way, that's how NGOs work. If you want to take everything that's bad about NATO and the UN and these other organizations that we don't like, it's all in the Board of Peace. And
Right.
so, but bottom line is, I think that all of this was designed to put in the mechanics, to put in AI for the IRS, to build a database of Americans, to put these things in place, to consolidate power in the executive branch for JD Vance, because Curtis Yarvin has been pushing, and again, this is the person that Peter Thiel looks at, the idea that we should have a monarch or a CEO or a dictator, not a democracy as they call it, which of course we're not even a democracy anyway. It's a false
Right.
argument, but this is the intentions. And so a lot of people got burned. A lot of people that thought, oh, hey, Trump is going to, as I said earlier, going to put these things in place. Why? So to limit government and restore the Constitution. That was never the intent. That is not what Yarvin and Thiel are all about. And so it may not, but Teal has placed many bets. He's not betting everything on JD Vance. And I did a whole podcast episode on Ohio.
Oh, yes. Ohio. I could do a whole other interview with you on Ohio.
Ohio,
That was interesting.
Ohio is ground zero for technocracy.
Yep.
I mean, even to the point where, we haven't talked about data centers yet, but Ohio is has the fourth largest number of data centers, and most of these are in a place called New Albany, which is a
Wow.
corporate town that was funded by Les Wexner, that for a period of time Jeffrey Epstein was the co-president of. When you really start digging into Ohio, like it'll blow your mind. But
Oh, my word.
so Vivek Ramaswamy is part of this. JD Vance, you have Peter Thiel's all over the place. One of the things that with this Technocracy Atlas map is I've started to analyze Peter Thiel's involvement at the state and local level. I found out that through an entity he funded $10,000 towards the New Hampshire Republican Party. So
Of course he did.
I think once we unveil all of this, you're going to start to be able to see that there's been a tremendous amount of thought, money, and work involved at all levels of government to push this technocracy. JD Vance is one of the chess pieces, and it's the
Mm.
closest one. This is why, to me, it is the most important. Not that, again, I don't believe we can vote our way out, but if we don't put in some resistance, we're not going to buy
Right.
enough time to come up with other solutions. And JD Vance absolutely needs to be stopped in 2028.
Yes, and your point, throwing wrenches. This is why you're running for Senate. This is why I'm trying to get on the ballot as Lieutenant Governor of New York State. It is to, along with Larry Sharp, it's to begin to throw wrenches, to deny them whatever it is that they want to achieve through cheating in the electoral process, right? And that has the impact of messing things up for them. So there's a value, even if you don't win the election or I don't win the election, there's a value in the organizational efforts involved. And I'd like to talk with you more about that, but we are running low on time, and I want to get to the good news, the good part. The American people bombshell poll that was released showing that basically average Americans hate artificial intelligence. They hate the data centers. They really have no interest in all of the robots. They're very uneasy about all of this. And we're seeing the pushback at the local level against data centers, and they're succeeding in many cases. When the local officials don't listen to them, they're going in and having special elections and special votes to rip them out and deny them their seats. I mean, they're throwing everything but the kitchen sink. Tell me about what you think and how optimistic are you for resistance? Like, what is it that you see that we can do to resist, and what can people do in their own hometowns? We have about 5, 6 minutes left.
So, I mean, I'm going to start elevating this technocracy atlas to put together tools to help people fight back at the local level with
Okay.
research, printouts, and even detailed, reviews of bills and everything else. Because I've done all of this at the state level at New Hampshire. And so I want to take what we've learned here and make these tools available for people for free. There's one thing that I want to make as an argument against these data centers, which is not the primary argument being made. And there are people that are even trying to push data centers in my home state now, claiming that it's free market. Here's something that you have to understand about these data centers. Right now, there is a bill in the Senate that Marsha Blackburn put together. There's an AI bill. I think it's called the Trump something AI bill. And then there's a new White House policy about AI. This is what you have to understand about the multi-layers of how this technocracy works. This bill will do the following. One, in order for your AI model to be passed, to be allowed to be released under this legislation, it will have to be approved by the Department of Energy. Point number one. Point number two, there is a pushback on any state laws to regulate AI. There is a single position vested with the ability to shoot down state-based AIs in this bill, and it is the Secretary of Commerce, Howard Lutnick.
Oh my gosh.
Point number three, your AI model will have to go through the FTC to confirm that it's not politically biased. Point number four, and this was an addition by Senator Lindsey Graham, the bill, it will basically get rid of Section 230 with respect to AI, which will basically get rid of free speech within these AI platforms, and developers will be held liable. The net result of all of this means only big tech can even afford to play. The data centers that are coming in are surveillance systems, because if the Department of Energy, the Department of Commerce, and the FTC have control over whether or not models can be issued and how they work, there's nothing free market about that. So all these data centers then represent are surveillance systems. There are digital prison. It didn't have to be this way. It doesn't have to be this way, but I will tell you, I see little resistance or ability to fight things in DC. I mean, maybe something will happen and this stuff won't pass, but it's likely to pass, which means that at the state level, you end up with these federal government sanctioned data centers that then get tax subsidies from the state, which is also not free market. So I want to make the argument against these data centers on the basis of free markets.
Right.
Because a lot of times, and I've been through these, it's hard. The hard part about local government is that typically town councils are controlled by developers.
Right.
School boards are controlled by the teachers union. And so it's really difficult to sustain wins at these levels. And we've seen this with cell tower construction, right? Verizon, people will say, I don't want a cell tower, but then Verizon will spend all of this money, do a whole campaign, and then they usually end up winning. But we have to fight back on multiple fronts. Also, the episode that I did in Ohio, we went into some detail on some of the negative health consequences, cancer clusters, and other things coming out of these data centers. So we have to have a multifaceted approach, but what I want people to start to understand, because people may be fighting data centers for different reasons, but they don't understand where the data centers are in terms of this overall technocracy. And what I'm hoping is that people realize that this isn't a Republican or Democrat issue. This is a global technocracy movement infiltrating all levels of government, and it has to be stopped. You can't hide from it. You can't, because it is global in nature. You can't hide from it. It has to be stopped. So that is a critical point that I've been making for a while, but it's all the more important. We can't just kill this in one place. We have to, and then only to have it move over two towns or a different state.
Right.
They'll find somewhere. I just saw something in my feed that I hope isn't true. Um, but again, this Peter Thiel thing, I'm going to find, I guarantee you somewhere. He forms these different like secret societies, and they have these meetings, and they've been doing this for a long time. And we know some of it, but I can tell you, I'm seeing talking points coming out of people at the state level that are all like NPC George Soros.
Oh yeah.
I just
Oh
saw
yeah.
some, Peter. I don't know if this is true. We should look into this. But Peter Thiel's funding a tribunal of truth that will employ former FBI, NSA, and CIA professionals, gather evidence, and render a judgment by artificial intelligence. That needs to be vetted. But
Wow.
it,
Wow.
it,
Yeah,
it
everything.
absolutely, it would not surprise me because the ideology here is, and what they've done is they've said, we didn't like woke, we didn't like DEI. So the reaction to that is going to be everything has to be based on merit as determined by them, and
Right.
surprisingly and uniquely only for their skill sets
Yeah.
as morally defined.
Hmm.
But where it's problematic is that it invades your rights, and because it values meritocracy over rights. It doesn't actually have anywhere in there safeguards. So their view is if you have some philosopher king, if they try to put up Thiel or Musk as a philosopher king, their argument is, well, he's smarter and he's better at making decisions for you better at making decisions. So he should be making decisions about your life.
Yeah.
This is literally where their thinking is going, and it's flawed on so many levels, but that is what they're actually pushing and promoting.
Well, and they have these grand plans, and we see this from megalomaniac, control freak psychopaths. We've seen this throughout human history. And our job as the little people is to stop them, is to throw wrenches in their plans. And Aaron, I'm looking forward to joining you on the campaign trail and do whatever we can in our little corner of the world to fight back against this. You're doing an enormous, enormous service, guys. I don't think I know anyone who has a better grasp on what is actually going on in terms of the technocracy, the economy, and in finance than Aaron Day. So I want you guys to support his efforts. And if you are in New Hampshire, you need to sign up and help him campaign, whatever it is that he needs to do to get on the ballot and potentially win a Senate seat in the state of New Hampshire. I want to encourage you guys to do that as well, because you need him in New Hampshire. Aaron, great job, man. I learned so much from you today, and I'm going to have you on again very soon, because we need to talk about Ohio. We need to talk about all of the Epstein elements. We didn't even get into pandemics for profit, which was revealed in the Epstein documents, the financial structure that Jeffrey Epstein was building with people like Bill Gates, which explains and lays bare a lot of the things that you've talked about in terms of the medical industrial complex. I mean, there's so much more that we need to get into, but we've just run out of time. So one last time, anything else on your chest that you want to get off real quickly in about a minute, and then let people know how they can help you, and then we'll close down the show.
Well, I was just saying there's a big event coming up, Enemies of the State. It's at the Libertarian National Convention. It's not part of the Libertarian National Convention. It's not affiliated with the Libertarian Party. It just happens to be going on at the same time. And we are advocating for 13 unfortunately, people. It was 5 people in 2024. Now it's 13, and it's going to have opening statements by Ammon Bundy, closing statements and performance by Afro Man, and a bunch of people in between, including me. We're going to be live streaming that. So I'll be sending out more information, but I encourage people to amplify this, because when you hear these stories about how people have been targeted and remain in prison for promoting freedom, or for being whistleblowers, or for exercising their constitutional rights, it's heartbreaking. And it hasn't stopped under Trump. It's actually accelerated. And so we need to put a lot of pressure to get these people out of prison.
Yeah, absolutely. People are still being persecuted. Aaron Day, thank you. Thank you so much. Appreciate all of your work. You keep it up. All right.
Right. You too.
All right. Tell your beautiful wife I said hello to. I love her.
Will do.
Yeah.
Thanks.
That's how you know he's a good guy. Aaron doesn't travel without his wife. Every time I see Aaron, I get to hang out with his amazing wife, and really blessed to know them and to watch how Aaron is just amplifying his voice and helping so many people understand this really sticky thing that is techno-fascism and the technocracy. It's the dominating political ideology in the United States of America and across the globe right now. And it is the most evil, wicked, anti-human, dystopian ideologies I have ever covered, I have ever studied. It makes socialism, communism, fascism, capitalism, any of the isms that you want to talk about pale in comparison to the level of depravity and evil that these technocrats seek to expand across the globe. They don't care how many humans they kill or cull, who are injured or dead, as long as they own everything and wield ultimate control. It's horrifying. So thank you to Aaron Day for doing such an amazing job. And thank you guys for being with me today on the SJ Show. Everyone on YouTube, Sharon Zarlaki, 9026, great to see you. On Substack, Will R. Sampson. Shannon, if you haven't figured it out by now, everyone is blind and under a spell. Don't know how else I can help. Well, that's just false, Will. There are a lot of people who are not blind and not under a spell. And by perpetrating that mindset, you perpetrate apathy. Being doom and gloom, and there's nothing we can do, and the bad guys are coming, and we might as well just curl up into the fetal position and suck our thumb and do nothing, is not allowed on the SJ Show, Will. So I appreciate your comment, but I'm not buying it. M. Garth Hilton, we must gather locally in every county, red, blue, and everything else, and begin to make a community safety plan to begin to learn how to resist and run county grand juries. I love grand juries. You guys know me. I'm an all of the above kind of gal. If you want to run for office, if you want to promote grand juries, if you want to run for local office, if you want to start a podcast or start a publication or organize in this way or that way, let's go. As long as we're outside of the corrupt two-party political system and we're clinging to truth, then it's going to be beneficial. So for those of you who were with me today, Ollie Robin 9, thank you so much. Mr. Worthless Eater, it is great to see you, and thank you so much as well. LT Oracle of Truth, you guys are amazing. Of course, thank you to Annie for producing the SJ Show today. We love Annie Cyrus and our sponsors, the Wellness Company, Shift Gold. We love the folks over at the Satellite Phone Store, sat123.com/joy. And of course, Don Polano over at PCM and Associates. When you guys support our sponsors, you help support this show. So I appreciate all of you who are patronizing our amazing partners. All right. Have a great day. We'll be back tomorrow to do it all again right here on the Shannon Joy Show.